What's up, vinyl community? It's your boy Chris, or it's all of those of you who have followed me over from Instagram or who have subscribed to me here on YouTube exclusively know me as @Tunes from the Man Cave. Haven't made a video in a few weeks. For this video, something simple, just to let all of you guys know about all the things that I've found since my last video. And to be perfectly honest with you guys, there's some killer stuff in here, stuff that I've acquired from swaps with friends, from pop-up sales, from things that people have just sold me on Instagram. Every now and then I get a little drop in my inbox on Instagram from people who follow my feed and know how I roll, that try to sell me something, and sometimes I've already got it, and sometimes I end up scoring a real gem and don't even try looking for it. So there's a few of those in here. There's a couple that I acquired from a couple of new sellers. And there's a couple I've gotten from, subscriptions such as Vinyl Me Please, steals on eBay. But let's get right on into it. On the turntable, as always, to start things off, is Isle of Wight. It's Bob Dylan bootleg. I'm certain I don't have to dive any deeper. Bob Dylan, Isle of Wight, you guys know what it is. It's a decent bootleg, not too bad. But anyway, diving right in. Recent find, Sonny Rollins, Tenor Madness. Guys, I freaking love Sonny Rollins. He's incredible. This quartet's got Red Garland, Paul Chambers, Philly Joe Jones, and on the title track, It Cannot Be Forgotten, John Coltrane. So Tenor Madness, the title track of this album, is the only known recording featuring the legendary talents of both John Coltrane and Sonny Rollins. I love this album. I wish it was an original. It's not. It's a very solid 80s reissue that I got for a great deal, and it'll hold me over until I score my original one day. But I'm psyched to have it. It sounds phenomenal. Next up, one that I scored for like $3.99 on eBay, a total steal. I've seen it before, passed on it a few times, but for $3.99 on eBay, couldn't. It's Muddy and the Wolf. Killer album. I've heard it, you've heard it. Used to own it on CD, the way that we all used to listen to music. But $3.99. Best deal I've ever gotten on it. Couldn't pass it up. Finally took the dive on eBay. Next up, in the continuing tradition of Muddy Waters, my favorite blues man. You can always have interesting conversations, I've come to find, with blues music fans about who your favorite blues man is. And for me, it's Muddy Waters. It's not close. There are plenty of people in the discussion, but it always ends up taking me to Muddy. Never once have I ever been like, this person right here might be knocking on Muddy's door. No, not really. Muddy's my favorite. And at Newport, 1960. It's a killer album. I hope I don't have to explain any more to you guys about the quality and about the just pure magic of this record. I scored this one on eBay for like $12. I can't remember what it was. Very lucky winner of an auction. Thrilled to finally have it. I've never really stumbled on an original in a record store, and then every time I found it online, I always thought it was a little rich for my blood, so finally got lucky on it. Because a good one. Guys, this is an original mono pressing of Grant Green's Grant Stand. I love Grant Green. He is my absolute favorite jazz guitarist. Bar none, there are plenty that I love. But Grant Green's my favorite. It's something about the way that man plays. I tell you, it really always gets me every time, and I'm always in a mood for Grant. But this is an original mono Blue Note, guys. I want it for $30. I looked on Discogs. These things are selling for upwards of $200 right now. Again, it's just one of those scenarios where I just got lucky on a bid. And this album was listed at the same time as a Joe Henderson record and a couple other Blue Notes, and I think this one must have just got lost in the wind, because a couple of the other ones that I just mentioned went for $150, $160 from the same seller, but this one slipped to me for $32, and I would pay that probably at least 3 times over for this. It's worth it, and it's a killer pressing. I just listened to it earlier today. So that's one of my most exciting finds in a while, guys. I am a huge Grant Green fan. Next up, another eBay steal. Hank Mobley. Workout. Not an original, I'm sad to report, but a quality 1980s pressing. It's got Grant Green is on it, Wynton Kelly, Paul Chambers, Philly Joe Jones, and Hank Mobley plus Grant Green. Don't even, mention the quality of these other musicians on this, the legendary abilities of these other musicians. To hell with that. All you'd have to do is say Hank Mobley and Grant Green talking inside of a phone booth, and I'd have bought that. Especially for the steal I got this for. I can't remember. It was $18, $19. I don't know. And even these 80s reissues of these Blue Notes guys go for good cash. Very happy to have it. If I ever do strike out on a great quality reissue for original for a really good price, I will grab it, but this will hold me over. So I don't know how you guys feel about the following, but you ever have an album? I'm sure everybody watching this video has got at least a couple of records where the cover is trash, but the record is immaculate. Sounds immaculate, looks immaculate, everything, but the cover just looks like somebody just like let a toddler hold it and then like walked around the corner in the room and came back and the cover was torn all to shit. Well, I was I'm gonna say lucky enough to acquire one of those earlier this week. It is Jackie McLean's original New and Old Gospel original Blue Note pressing. As you can tell, serious water damage down there on the cover. I mean, not so bad to where it splits, but it's borderline. The cover again is terrible. There's no split seams, there's no writing on it or anything, but it's somebody spilled something on it, got something on it somewhere along the line, flooding in a house, something. But the record is immaculate. The record looks and sounds as if it's never even been spun. So for $8 on eBay, when these things go for 50, 60 bucks plus sometimes, I wasn't about to pass it up for an immaculate record. If the record was also garbage, $8 is too much. Let's just be honest. It doesn't matter what the album is. If both the cover and the wax are garbage, then $8 is too much for any album. But for immaculate wax and a visible cover, damn the water damage, $8 I found to be an incredible steal. And Ornette Coleman plays on the album. Guys, if you've never really dove into the catalog of Jackie McLean, you're any kind of a jazz fan on here, as you guys know I am. You already dive more into the catalog. It's some really great stuff. One of my favorite ones that I've gotten recently. So a little side story real quick. I got plenty of things to share with you guys, so a little side story. My buddy at Noble Records, Dylan, had struck gold on an album, and it's an album that I had looked for years. And so our usual relationship, especially if he knows it's the kind of genre or whatever that he thinks I would be into, he immediately hits me, Instagram, text message, whatever, and lets me know he has it, wants to know if I'm interested in it. Well, he just shared a picture of this one, so I'm immediately like, dude, dibs, whatever, just tell me how much you want for it. And he texts back like, I'm keeping this, you loser. I'm like, man. And it was one of those ones that I had and I wanted for so long, so I immediately responded back like, dude, if you ever want to sell it, please let me get first dibs. And he's like, yeah, don't hold your breath. Alrighty then. So from that moment on, like I said, I've been looking for it for years, but from that moment on, I was on a mission, started looking everywhere. Discogs, hell, I looked on Craigslist, I looked on Etsy, I looked eBay, everywhere, and I found one at a price that I could live with. Original mono, Sonny Rollins, Way Out West, guys. It's an immortal jazz classic. Scored it on eBay, buy it now, price $45. It's worth way more. And the cover's great. Immaculate, no splits, no writing, anything, anywhere. You can't beat it. I had to have it after I got that little teaser from my boy at Noble Records. So here it is, Sonny Rollins, Way Out West. I can't even begin to tell you guys how stoked I am to have that. All right. So a few, and there are more to come after these, probably for a video or two down the line. So if for you guys who followed me over from Instagram, for my fellow jazz fans, you may follow at DJ Pari, DJ Pari. Huge jazz fan, huge jazz collector, killer jazz collection. Well, recently he had posted an album for sale. I inquired about it. We made a deal, just like that. But after we make that deal, then I think he starts digging a little deeper into how big of a jazz fan I am. And now all of a sudden this guy's making me offers left and right. And there's a few that I have that I haven't jumped on. And then there's a few that I've got here that I'm getting ready to show you. And a few that I've got coming next week already. And I'm sure plenty more to come over the years. Me and this guy have really struck a pretty decent business relationship in the last month or so. But for starters, let's get into it. Original mono, Blue Note, Andrew Hill, Compulsion. This record, I think the lowest it goes for this exact pressing on Discogs, the last time I checked, so if you back check behind me and I'm way off, then don't give me too much hell. It's been a few days since I checked. But the last time I checked, the cheapest this pressing of this album goes for on Discogs is $274. I didn't pay $274 for it. I won't disclose how much I paid for it, seeing as how it's a deal between me and this guy, and I just named him on my videos. So that's business. That's between me and him. I didn't name any of his other sellers, so that's why I was comfortable with the price. But anytime I'm doing business and naming an individual, that's between me and him. Let's just say it was a great deal. And it's killer. It's a wonderful pressing. Man, I'm psyched to have it. In that same transaction, original stereo pressing, first pressing, Blue Note, Happenings by Bobby Hutcherson. On the record, Herbie Hancock. You guys ever heard of Herbie Hancock? No? Yeah. Bob Cranshaw, Joe Chambers. Guys, this is a beautiful album. It really is. This is just a beautiful listen all the way across. I mean, even if you're just a casual jazz fan, you can dig this one. There's something here for you, even if you're just a casual jazz fan. But I love the album. It's going to be played over and over again. Cover is in damn good shape. No splits, no writing, no anything anywhere. Plus a really, really well-conditioned piece of wax. I love it. So, to my boy at DJ Pari on Instagram, cheers to you, my friend. Here's to plenty of more transactions. Again, I got a few more coming from him that I'll probably show you, if not next video, then the next video down the line. It'll be coming soon enough. Some real heaters coming in that package as well. Alright, so a lot of people bitched about Record Store Day, said that there wasn't anything for them. And I've come to find that the only people who ever really say that about Record Store Day are the people who are only like into one genre of music. Like if you're into hip hop and it's an off year for hip hop releases, then you're probably not going to be too happy with the list. But for a guy like me who loves, jazz and hip hop and country and rock and roll and classic rock and R&B and soul and hell, even electronic and everything else, for a guy like me, there's always a couple $100 to be spent on Record Store Day. And then there's always a few that I leave out of the store even after spending a couple $100, and I'm like, damn it, I really wanted that. I'm going to have to try to see if I can stumble on it on down the road. Well, for me, this was one of them. Nas, Illmatic, live from the Kennedy Center with the National Symphony Orchestra. Guys, this is a killer hip-hop album, a beautiful package. Beautiful. I mean, Nas rapping over an orchestra, one of the greatest hip-hop albums of all time. For those of you who missed out on it on RSD or maybe had doubts about it or whatever, it can be found for reasonable. I found mine for very reasonable, $25 or something like that. I can't remember what it was, but guys, this is a killer. This is a killer listen. This is probably now my favorite live hip hop album. I mean, it's great. Another one that I walked away from on Record Store Day because I found out that it was getting a wide release at a later date was Bruce Springsteen's Greatest Hits. It was near the top of my list until I found out it was getting a wide release. But just going through eBay, put in the search RSD 2018. This one pops up and it was $19.99 buy it now, which is $10 cheaper than it was at my local record store on the day of. And I thought to myself, even when it does get that wide release, it's probably not going to be that cheap. So I pounced. Red vinyl, killer. Believe it or not, I got this on CD when it first came out. I can't remember when it was. And I used to blast it in my pickup truck. And this is basically what got me wanting to delve a little deeper into the Boss's catalog. They start getting the studio albums. And I have most of them now, especially all the early ones. And so if it not been for this one, I probably wouldn't have dove quite as deep, because when I got the CD, I recognized the biggest hits, but didn't recognize a lot of the others. But very happy to have that. This next one is one that I was so thrilled to see get reissued recently. So thrilled. Paul McCartney's late 90s, early 2000s stuff that's now out of print goes for insane. Flaming Pie, you know, Run Devil Run, Driving Rain, you know, and the following, Chaos and Creation in the Backyard, have gone for crazy cash. The cheapest I'd seen this one before the reissue was like $150, and I was tempted. I almost did it, and pulled back. I'm like, hold off. I'll find it cheaper eventually. Well, I found it cheaper eventually in the way of the archive reissue for McCartney finally putting this one out. And so now you can get it for $18 to $22, so you can't beat that. And it sounds great. They took a lot of care with the reissue, as McCartney always does. So for those of you who have wanted this album and just could not shell out the cash and maybe weren't aware that it had been reissued, Paul McCartney, Chaos and Creation in the Backyard. It's actually the last record I listened to before I came on to do the video. Next up, eBay acquisition. The Impressions, Keep On Pushing. Classic. I love Curtis Mayfield. I'm trying to acquire a little more of his catalog. I won this one for $6 on eBay. It's in immaculate condition. Next up, Completely Well, legendary B.B. King, still in the shrink wrap. It's still got the hype sticker and everything on it. This one's got the Thrillers going on it, guys. That should be all I have to say. Any kind of blues fan is going to already be aware of this album. But I scored it for, I think, $4 on eBay. I think from the same seller as the Impressions album, if I'm not mistaken. I got some real steals on that, off of that seller, so that was great. I found myself in a little bit of a revisit to hip hop here. When I was a teenager, when I had my first car, when I used to listen to music in my room, all my friends listened to hip hop. For me, hip hop was still in its golden wave and its golden age. I loved it. I listened to it constantly. I listened to everything else as well, but really hip hop was what I was really listening to so much. And I go away from it. I always go away from it for months and months and months, and sometimes maybe a year or two at a time. But I always find myself going back to the hip hop that I loved when I was in middle school or high school. I always find myself going back. And here recently, I really got inspired to go back and dive into these 3 albums and these 3 artists. Well, you know, especially The Game, the documentary. 2 LPs. For me, this is one of the albums that really kind of brought West Coast hip hop back to the forefront. After March 9th, 1997, specifically. That's the day of the death of the Notorious B.I.G. Rest in peace. East Coast hip hop just took over and ran with it. From Jay-Z to the Bad Boy Records to DMX to, I mean, it's just East Coast hip hop. East Coast hip hop, East Coast and down south. West Coast kind of faded. But they came back strong, especially in the early 2000s. Dr. Dre, Eminem, The Game. These guys really came back hard. And for me, that was one of the real ones that was like, you know, kind of like really jump-starting their return. Next up, I certainly don't like this artist's entire catalog. I only like a couple albums, really. But this one's a classic. 50 Cent, Get Rich or Die Trying, original 2 LP. I think I probably know every lyric of this. I remember bumping this The year it come out, I remember bumping it in my car on the school parking lot all the time. Who wasn't listening to In the Club? Boom, 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 boom. Thumping in like every car in my high school parking lot. We couldn't get enough of it. This thing probably didn't come out of my CD changer for months, maybe a year or two, to be honest with you. So really was disappointed with most of what came after this, but I love Get Rich or Die Trying, and I finally own it on wax for the first time. Next one, I'm a huge DMX fan. And then there was X. 2 LP original pressing. His first 4 or 5 are really the only ones you need. I mean, you need the Great Depression, and you need, well, not the Great Depression necessarily, but you need this one. You need, Flesh of My Flesh, and you guys know which ones you need. The first 4 really for me are the ones you really need, and this is one of them. For me, his last really good hip hop album. And then there was X, 2 LP, OG press. Next up, I'm going to go through a few that I acquired from a pop-up sale held by my boy at Noble Records at Lenny Boy Brewing in beautiful Charlotte, North Carolina. My buddy Dylan holds a lot of these all over town, especially here recently. And for me, you guys know, I love my tunes, I love my brews, and he's holding a lot of them at breweries, so he knows he can count on me being in attendance. I got you back, Dylan. But one of the first ones, usually if he makes a deal with somebody and it's got some stuff he thinks I'm going to be interested, he just sets it aside for me. This was one of the ones. In the Kitchen, Eddie Lockjaw Davis. Killer album. Another one that I scored at the same pop-up at Lenny Boy. Loose by Willis Jackson. Another killer. This is one of the like 2 or 3 that I scored that day that I'm really stoked about. Sir Lord Baltimore, Kingdom Come. Do yourself a favor and discogs this one and see what it goes for. It goes for some pretty good cash. He cut me a totally reasonable deal just like he always does. Thank you, Dylan. This is killer. Very Led Zeppelin-esque, at least in my opinion. If you've never heard of Sir Lord Baltimore and you love Led Zeppelin, if you can come up on this for decent, grab it. Next up, Trumpet Giants. It's a compilation. Miles Davis, Fats Navarro, Dizzy Gillespie, and then all kinds of other legends play on these compositions. Sonny Rollins, Art Blakey, Jackie McLean, Walter Bishop, Tommy Porter, Milt Jackson, yada yada yada. The list goes on and on. Killer Comp, original mono. Next few. Buzzcocks, Singles Going Steady. This is just a killer album in every word, every way, shape, or form, really. I mean, you don't have to necessarily be into this style of music, in my opinion, to really love this album. I love it. And I had never seen it in a record store, believe it or not, at least not an original press. And when he got it, I had to immediately call dibs. So again, scored this from my boy. Thanks, Dylan. John Coltrane, Coltrane Sound, original press. As you guys probably know, I'm sure I've probably said it before in a video. Hell, from the angle I'm filming this, you can probably see my John Coltrane custom art piece up here in the corner. I am a huge John Coltrane fan. Anything Coltrane, if I don't have it, I want it. If Coltrane even plays on it, I don't have it, I want it. That's pretty much just the way it is. Miles Davis, Quiet Nights. Arranged and conducted by Gil Evans, original pressing. Killer. But probably the steal of the night for that particular evening, one that he had held for me. You may not have even heard of it, a lot of you. Mighty Baby. Self-titled, very psychedelic-ish rock album. It's killer. No clue why these guys weren't bigger. This is phenomenal. The guitar licks and everything, and the drums. This is a killer album. But she ain't cheap. often seen going for hundreds and hundreds of dollars. I didn't pay that much, but again, I would not tell you how much I paid for it. It was a business decision, once again, between me and my buddy. But this is killer. If you can ever stumble on it for any kind of reasonable price whatsoever, please get it. You owe it to your earbuds, especially if you are any kind of a fan whatsoever of psych rock. Grab it if you find it for cheap. Guys, excuse me for 1 second, a little dead wax going on. Apologize, you guys. Hopefully that 10-second break wasn't enough for you to sign off of this video and go to the next one. Next one. Got a couple from another seller that I discovered in the Charlotte area. For you guys, if you're not aware of him, especially, again, if you live in the area, he also has sales in the area, in the Charlotte, Matthews area. At Hardy Boys Records. He's found me some real gold. We've made a couple of deals. I'll show you a couple real quick. Ornette Coleman, Chappaqua Suite, 2 LP, original UK press. This album is killer. Originally commissioned to be a soundtrack for a movie named Chappaqua. The director of the movie declined to use the music once he heard it because he said it was too beautiful and would take away from the enjoyment of the film. He was that concerned that people would just love this so much that they couldn't comprehend the film or wouldn't try to. But once you listen to it, you can definitely hear why. So once they declined to use the music for the film, the label put it out as a 2 LP set. Very poorly promoted it, and it was sold poorly, obviously, as a result. And by the next year, it was out of circulation completely. And I don't know what the hell for. This is classic jazz, in my opinion. I love Ornette Coleman anyway. Any of you guys fortunate enough to come up on that one and you think, well, I've never heard of that one. Well, there's a good reason. The label under-promoted the shit out of it. But if you ever do see it, grab yourself a copy, especially if you're a jazz fan. Definitely if you're an Ornette Coleman fan, you owe it to yourself. Kill it. Another one features some of my favorite jazz musicians, period. Here it is. Lou Donaldson, original mono blue note. Grant Green, Babyface Roulette, Lou Donaldson on the same record. 3 of my favorites. I had to have it. It's killer. She ain't cheap either. Again, we're talking original blue notes. These things are never cheap. But trust me when I tell you, I never pay the oh my god outlandish prices that you see. I always manage to find deals if I'm patient enough, and this is another fine example of a deal that I got. Thank you at Hardy Boys Records. I really appreciate it. Gonna close up this already too long video, but it's been too long since I've updated you guys on my recent finds, which is why this was running so long. I apologize. With my Vinyl Me Please subscriptions for the month. I subscribe to 3 memberships of Vinyl Me Please. I can't get enough, really. I probably should scale down. But the essential release for the month is an album I'd never heard. And some of you are probably going to be shocked by that, but it slipped by me. The year it came out, I've never heard of it. And I still haven't listened to it. It's still in the original, it's still in the plastic. TV on the radio, Return to Cookie Mountain. Gotta say that's one of the weirdest damn titles I've ever heard in my life, but from everything I've heard or read, it's supposed to be an absolutely stellar album. And I'm going to throw it on here soon. It's 2 LP, 45 RPM. I always love that treatment. I'm a sucker for 45 RPM. And Vinyl Me Please does it really well. So I'm looking forward to throwing it on. A lot of people swap every record that I've never heard of it. Swap. The main reason I subscribed to Vinyl Me Please was so that I could get some intro to some music that maybe I hadn't heard of or wasn't quite aware of. So I've only swapped once. I can't remember what album it was, but I only swapped once. Other than that, I take what they give me, and so far I haven't really been disappointed, but give that one a shot. Another one, the hip-hop subscription. It's the only one that I've gotten since I've subscribed to the hip hop subscription that I've never heard of. MF Doom, Food, with such stellar song titles as Beef Rap, Hoe Cakes, Potholders, One Beer, Deep Fried Friends, Poo Putt Platter, Filet-O Rapper, Gumbo. You guys get the gist. But I've heard some people really rave about it. But I'd never heard about it until I found out it was the subscription for the month. I'm looking forward to it, if for nothing else, because it seems like a really interesting concept. So we'll see what we got. Next up is finally the only one of the three that I have heard of, but I haven't heard the album in its entirety. But Daryl Banks, Here to Stay. It's the Vinyl Me Classics, Vinyl Me Please Classics subscription for the month. It's got, it's got Only the Strong Survive on it, a couple of other, pretty big hits, in my opinion. I've heard the songs throughout my life, but I've never heard this album in its entirety. But was excited to see this one in the package because I was like, oh, I've heard some of these. But anyway, that closes me out for records that I've found since my last video. It's a pretty decent amount. This weekend, I don't want to close this video out without dropping a quick promo, quick plug, because I was talking to you guys and you saw some of the gold that I got from at Noble Records pop-up sale at Lenny Boy Brewing in Charlotte. This weekend, tomorrow, for you guys in the area, if you're in the state of North Carolina, upstate South Carolina, if you can make the drive, my buddy, Dylan, at Noble Records on Instagram and as well on YouTube, is holding yet another pop-up sale. He's bringing 3,000 records with him, guys. He had to rent a damn truck just to bring this supreme amount of wax that he's getting ready to bestow upon us lucky consumers. Divine Barrel Brewing in Charlotte is where this is going to take place from 12 o'clock p.m. to 4 p.m. If you can make it, be there or be square. Come out, support a friend of mine, have you a couple of beers, meet a couple of us that you've heard talking or seen around Instagram or YouTube or whatever, and I would be really happy to meet some of you, and I know he'd be thrilled to meet some of you. And you're going to get some killer wax, and you're going to have a good time, and you're going to maybe meet some new friends. So come on out, guys. If you're in the area, upstate South Carolina, again, state of North, if you can make the trip, please come on out. Maybe I'll see some of you there. I sincerely hope so. Until the next time, keep dropping that needle, you guys. Cheers. It's your boy At Tunes from the Man Cave.